Kevin Rankin.
What is happening, folks? It's good to see you back here. Tuesday, the 21st. This is episode 216, I believe, of All Access Live, and it's going to be a good one. We've got our Oregon Music Hall of Fame inductee, Curtis Salgado, coming up shortly. But before we get started with him, I want to thank my sponsors at 5-Star Guitars. Check the link below, 5starguitars.com/allaccesslive, and enter the promo code of All Access 15. You're going to save 15% of everything you see there. There's already no sales tax in Oregon, so if you're ordering online, you're going to save a bunch of money plus the 15% off just by entering that promo code. You'll support local, and you're certainly going to support this show. So when you do, let them know that I sent you. They've got guitars, they've got accessories, they've got repairs and lessons from pros like my dear friend Jennifer Batten, who, if you have followed her beyond Michael Jackson and Jeff Beck days, you'll know that she's actually teaching out of 5-Star Guitars. And so you can check out her Guitar Cloud Symposium. She's got a 3-day intensive workshop that she does with the biggest guitarists in the world. You can just find that at guitarcloudsymposium.com. And hopefully you can take some lessons from 5-Star, show up at the symposium, and then you'll have all the information you need to become a worldwide phenom like her. Now, before I get started, I mentioned that the inductee of the Oregon Music Hall of Fame is going to be on the show. This 14th annual induction ceremony is going to be held on October 9th at the Aladdin Theater in Portland, 6 o'clock. If you're not from the area, go to omhof.org, omhof.org, and you'll see that not only is it the 14th year of its existence, but the first year, 2007, is when they inducted hundreds of, I guess not hundreds, I think there were about 50 inductees of artists, musicians, bands, conductors, a lot of people that have been influential in music based in Oregon or having relocated and having at least 20 years of an impact on the music industry from right here in Oregon. In 2007, the first induction ceremony was no brainer at all that Curtis was going to be one of the inductees. So if you're not familiar with his past, I'm going to give you a little insight into who Curtis Salgado is. We're still waiting for him to log in, actually. So he and I chatted earlier. He had some connection issues. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Curtis Salgado, okay? First of all, let me tell you this. If you don't know, and you're watching on any other device other than YouTube, I'd like for you to go to youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin. There you're going to find all the 215 episodes that I had from previous episodes or previous shows. You can subscribe to it. You'll be notified about upcoming guests. You can go back through and look at all the other archives. If you just hit the little bell next to the subscribe button, it will let you know every time I'm going to go live. So after you've done that, go ahead and just move over to YouTube, and then let me tell you about Curtis. All right. So I was on the 80s cruise with a Flock of Seagulls in 2016. And I was excited because although I wouldn't classify him as just 80s, Huey Lewis in the News was on the gig. And Huey was one of the funniest cats I've ever met. Really, really good guy. But when I told him that I was from Portland, he lit right up and he said, "Wait a minute, Curtis Salgado, man. Curtis is in Portland." And I said, "Yeah. How do you know Curtis Salgado?" And he's like, "Man, he's the original Blues Brother. He's the reason the Blues Brothers even exist. And he's the reason I started playing harmonica." So I knew these things, but I just didn't know how globally he was known. So, there's some choppy connection, it sounds like. Yeah, so I see a couple of people mentioning that there's a bad connection. If you can hear me all right, you just let me know. I'll do what I can to affect it. But anyway, Huey Lewis is a big fan. In the late 70s, early 80s, Curtis Salgado was this strapping young lad in Eugene, Oregon, playing harmonica in these little blues clubs. And John Belushi came, I think it was 78, I'm just guessing, came to Eugene to film Animal House. And so when they were there filming Animal House, Belushi went out one night and caught a blues band, caught Salgado playing harmonica in this club, and he was immediately blown away. I guess he sat down and said he wanted to talk to Curtis. Somebody mentioned that Belushi was there wanting to see him, and he acted like either he had no idea who it was or didn't believe that it was him. Either way, they hung out that night. Belushi said, "Man, you got to teach me everything you know about the blues." And from that point forward, this young 20 something dude had such an impact on John Belushi that he created the Blues Brothers. He not only created the skit that ended up on Saturday Night Live on a recurring skit, but ended up making the movie about the Blues Brothers. And it became this huge international phenomenon. I found this information about that and Curtis, and I was going to read a little bit of this. Check this out. Belushi gives all the credit to Salgado. Curtis really helped me out, Belushi says over the phone from his New York City office. I owe him a lot. Belushi feels his debt to Salgado is so deeply, that he insisted that the young musician's name be included in the recent cover articles on Belushi in Crawdaddy and Newsweek magazines, and he dedicated the Blues Brothers album, Briefcase Full of Blues, to him. If the Blues Brothers, this is what it's saying in this article, right, from back in the late 70s, early 80s, says, if the Blues Brothers catches on, Salgado would have been responsible for a major item of pop culture. And if, as a result, traditional blues itself catches on, Salgado will have played a significant role in affecting the direction of American popular music. Obviously, the Blues Brothers caught on, and I would say the blues has caught on as a international or a national phenomenon. Um, the I think the early days of Curtis Salgado, beyond that, were his days with Robert Cray, another Hall of Fame artist and an incredible blues artist, and he certainly made a name for himself. So while we wait for him to log in, I might actually ask you guys in the chat here to tell me a few stories that you know about Curtis. I did see somebody mentioned this earlier, and I thought this was really cool. He said that he had moved to Portland in the late 80s or early 80s. Really in a bad space, and his relationship had broken up, and he went out to see Curtis, and it changed his life. He felt like it saved his life. So there's something about Curtis and his presentation, his performance that affects people in a really remarkable way. I had two of his bandmates on this show earlier. Brian Harris, the keyboardist, came on and did a cover, or did his performance of Hail Mighty Caesar, which is on the most recent Curtis Salgado album, Damage Control. And Brian Foxworth, who's everybody's favorite drummer in the Portland area, he was on talking about some experiences that he had with Curtis, and really what led him to a point of changing his life, going into recovery. Brian had struggled with a lot of substance issues up until that point, and I'm only telling you this because this was his conversation with me, and he credits the band and Curtis and the desire to be professional by giving him grace and encouraging him when he went out in a really bad way in Las Vegas on the Strip, and apparently he got sober in between shows in a residency there in Vegas, and now he's alive and kicking and doing really, really well. So I think Curtis has impacted musicians in a big way. A lot of people in recovery. He's pretty open about it as well. I know that a lot of discussion with recovery is important to maintain anonymity. But with Curtis's situation, he's got a soapbox. And rather than stand on the soapbox and tell everybody what they should be doing, he's trying to live a life where he's shown that you can overcome adversity and maintain sobriety, maintain recovery in a healthy way. Dude's beat cancer, I think, 3 times. I know he had throat cancer and liver cancer, and has also had like open heart surgery and a lot of life scary things. But he's done well and maintained sobriety and encouraged people to do recovery. So I plan on talking about all that stuff when he hops in here. We're waiting on him. I tell you what, if you guys want to hang out for a second, I'll dip. I'm going to just give him a shot. We'll see if we can connect with him and get him online here. Let's see if we can put him on speakerphone.
Hey,
Hey, Curtis, how you doing, sir?
I'm standing in line at return. I'll call you in 10 minutes.
Okay. I'm actually online punting right now. So
Press.
I tell you what, well, I'll chat with some of the folks online, and then I'll just watch for your entrance.
All right, thank you.
You bet. All right. So tell me, folks, what's your memory? Kathleen Menges, Joe's mom says 5x5. Like to hear that. The Mark Stone has a mention about he's going to review. So, um, well, you know what? Let's just talk about me for a second. I'm going to tell you what's coming up. We had, I think I talked about the Greek theater show that we had a week and a half ago. Incredible, sold out show, September 3rd. It was so amazing to get back up on this massive stage. Played with the Romantics and Drama Rama and Animotion, which was cool. Get back with my old homies. And the next day, we played at Mountain Winery in Saratoga, which, if you've not gone, is really unbelievable. It looks like a castle there. So this coming weekend, Saturday, if you're in the Portland area, the last Wild Hair concert series is going to be at the Wild Hair in Canby, and I'll be performing with Shoot to Thrill. Maybe my last show with them. We'll see. There's a lot of Flock of Seagulls gigs happening right coming up, and so if the tickets have not sold out already, go to j-fell.com and you can get tickets. Come out and hang out with us at the Wild Hair. I'll be playing with Shoot to Thrill AC/DC tribute. There is the debut of 5150 Van Halen, Sammy Hagar era tributes playing, and opening the show is Plush, Stone Temple Pilots tribute, which is a remarkable band. Those three bands are certainly going to light it up. They got some surprise performances by people. And then the following weekend, if you're in Chicago, just found out about it last night, playing in with the Smithereens. We're doing a co-headline show on October 2nd, just north of Chicago in, well, you know what? Go to my website. You can find out. It's kevinrankin.com/calendar. The following week, we hit the road in a big way. If you go to that calendar page, you'll see we start in Ashland, Kentucky. Then we head up to Pennsylvania. Got gigs in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, I think DC, Maryland, all sorts of places up in the East Coast. And then I'll be hanging out with my buddies in Cancun for my birthday in, let's see, October 24th through the 29th. So if you go to 80sinthesand.rocks, you can actually get tickets for that, playing with the 80s in the Sand band there. There's also going to be a ton of there. I think Billy Idol's playing, Tesla's playing, Wang Chung is playing. I think Howard Jones is there. Cheap Trick is playing. Like so many bands. It's going to be awesome. A week-long, all-inclusive thing. And then we're playing a massive Halloween Oktoberfest deal in Costa Mesa, California. Look at who is here. This is awesome. I've got Claudia from Germany. Nice to see you, hon. And Elena, thank you for being here from Portland, Maine. Appreciate that. Scott Valentine, yes, sir, man. Cancun is going to be amazing. So check that one out. Go to 80s in the Sand, all the number 80s, 80s in the sand.rocks, and see this all-inclusive deal. It happens every year. They change the location every once in a while. And so go to my website, kevinrankin.com/calendar. You can see that. And then let's see what's going on in the chat over here. I'm going to say, see who else is here. I think I've already promoted enough of my gigs, don't you? Hey, if you guys are just getting here too, do me a favor. Go to this link right here, youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin. Hit the subscribe button, and I would appreciate that. I'd like to round up everybody and just make them come over here to YouTube. It's a much better place. I can have better access of notifying everybody when I have the shows. And again, like I said, you can go back and look through all these former episodes, these previous episodes. I had Susie McNeil on from Toronto last week. Susie's been traveling with Aerosmith for several years, and she's a rock star phenom on her own. Crazy, wicked singer and beautiful human. So if you want to be serenaded and have lullabies sang to you, check out the end of the Susie McNeil episode. You can find that on the YouTube channel. She does this beautiful lullaby to end the night, and I can't wait to get her back on the show. Upcoming shows, other Oregon Music Hall of Fame inductees, Norman Sylvester, who's known here around these parts as the original Boogie Cat. That'll be a good time. I plan on having Todd Duncan from Crazy Eights, which is also another all Oregon Hall of Fame inductee. And yeah, we'll just see who else I can round up. Gosh, it's so nice to see you here, Claudia. I haven't seen you forever. How are things in Germany? You know, I try to give people a little bit of a break in talking about the pandemic. And Curtis and I talked a little bit about this. This is nuts. He just got back yesterday from Switzerland. He did several shows in a row. It's kind of a residency in Switzerland. There was a little bit of a disconnect about band members getting over there and braving COVID. As far as I know, and my son Kalo, who's here online, told me that Switzerland right now is probably the best place to avoid COVID in terms of how they're protecting people and keeping things secure. But Curtis had some band members that opted not to go at the last minute for fear of COVID, and that's a rough go, man. I think we, as a flock of seagulls, had some concerns, but I'm grateful that a lot of the venues are being really meticulous about making sure that vaccination is required before entering. They also do temperature checks when you come in, and if you don't have the vax, at least have a negative test within 48 hours of entry. So I feel like those venues are secure. We try to do a little social distancing right now to make sure that nobody ends up getting an errant breakthrough case, and we want to be able to continue to do this. So hopefully these other shows that are coming up for Curtis will whoops, sorry, here I didn't mean to add that. I'm hopeful that these shows for Curtis are going to be safe too. Check this out. His schedule is even it's even more busy than mine. I'm going to tell you where he's at next. I would ask him when he's on here, but he's not here yet. So it looks like Friday night he's going to be at the Bridge Press Cellars in Spokane, Powerhouse in Folsom, California on the 2nd, playing in Seaside, California on the 3rd, Yoshi's Famous Jazz Club in Oakland, California on the 4th. Man, CurtisSalgado.com has all of his tour dates. And then he's going to be on the legendary Rhythm and Blues cruise, the R&B cruise. Looks like the 6th through the 13th, taking off out of Fort Lauderdale. So if you're really in the blues, you like to listen to Curtis, then catch that cruise, man. That'd be a fun place. If you haven't done the inclusive cruises, I'll tell you, there are pros and cons to it, right? If you don't like being stuck on a boat where you're around a lot of people, there are things that you can do. You can obviously camp out your room. They've got activities and a ton of excursions that when you get to the destinations, you can go off and see different spots. Like we're doing the 80s cruise coming up in March. A lot of great bands. It's a blast. I know we're going to the Bahamas and St. Thomas and St. John and the Virgin Islands. We've been to Turks and Caicos and Puerto Rico in the past for those, and try to find every zip line that I can in these tropical spots. So if you're an adventurer, then come out and hang out with us and do some zip lining. Roger Lemke, man, old classmate of mine, he says he saw Salgado at the Emerson in Bozeman in the early 2000s. So yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people that I grew up in Montana, and there were Portland artists that were really pivotal in inspiring me to become a professional musician. I was a huge Dan Reed Network fan. Most people that know me know Dan Pred. Their drummer is one of my favorite drummers. The band is one of my favorite bands. And the band Crazy Eights that I talked about earlier, they're also a Portland band. I loved these guys. And when I moved to Portland, I was really sad to know that there wasn't as much international recognition for those bands as I hoped there would be. But it is a rich city and environment of culture, right? We've got Salgado doing all sorts of stuff. I mean, he's known as kind of like this blues guy, but he's got a huge background in soul and funk and rock. That record I talked about that he had just came out with, Damage Control. There's so much good stuff. There's Zydeco, and there's rock and roll. There's really sentimental blues, very Clapton-esque, kind of ballads, and so man, I mean, New Shoes, '80s new wave pop stuff, and great metal bands. Man, we had Gargoyle from this area, and Black and Blue, the hair metal bands. These guys all came from the Portland area, so it's nice that prior to the Decemberists and the Shins and bands like that, some really cool bands put music on the map. Quarter Flash, of course. We've actually got a ton of '80s artists here too. My former guest and former bandmate Tommy Two-Tone lives here, and Martha Davis from the Motels is here. Of course, Bill Wadhams, my old bandmate from Animotion, he lives here in Portland. So, and I believe some of the guys in Smithereens lived here too. So, Claudia says she can't get to America. It's it's nuts. It should be allowed for people from November, but your vaccine's not accepted. Let's just hope that people get past this thing and we can get beyond it soon. So, let's see. Okay, Elena says she plays Curtis on the radio station she works at. Stephen King's rock and roll station in Bangor, Maine. Really? That's cool. Right on. I read enough about Bangor when I read all the Stephen King books. I didn't realize that he had a rock and roll station there. That's great. 100.3 WKIT. I'm trying to think how close we get to you. I think Connecticut might be the closest, or Jersey might be the closest that we get to you, Elena. Hopefully you can come out and hang out with the Flock of Seagulls. We'll be on tour in that area with Men Without Hats for most of October and part of November. So Scott Valentine, Dan Reed became more popular in Europe than they were here in the 90s. It's great. He actually lives in Prague right now, and there's a brand new Dan Reed album coming out. If you're a Dan Reed Network fan, man, you would not believe how good this album is. I got the sneak peek, and it rocked. It's the heaviest thing you've ever heard come from that band. The songs are so huge. Of course, Rob Daker produced it, and is playing with the band, and guy's got a vision. So check it out when it comes out. Go to danreed.com. I'm sure there's a link to the new record when it comes out, I think in October. He's definitely well known in Europe. Does a lot of travel in the UK and Western Europe. But the network, people are glad to see them back here right now, so that's cool. Scott says, yeah, he loved the Dan Reed Network. They were an incredible band, man. They were like the more commercially viable Living Colour, and I thought they toured with Bon Jovi and the Stones, and I think they should have been as big as any of those bands, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with the next record. I'm punting now, man. We're having fun with this thing. I can tell you stories about the road. I can talk to you about experiences with some of these artists that I've talked about in the past. Tell you what's coming up. Why don't I do that? I'll give you a rundown. Oh, here's Curtis. Curtis Salgado. Hey, sir.
I got caught up in traffic.
Okay.
I thought I'd make it, and I'm not.
Okay. You want to reschedule?
Well, I mean, if we can still do it today, I'll do it. But my deepest apologies.
Hey, I tell you, well, we got a handful of people online. I do have to cut it at 6, so I'm not sure how close you are to being back at your place.
About 15 minutes.
Okay.
This is like it's. I mean, I thought we'd make it. We did not make it.
Okay. Well, sure, man. Why don't you? I'll hang out with these folks. Come on and do it when you can. And even if we get to talk to you for a few minutes, that's rad.
I'd rather have a long talk.
Okay. All righty. Then here, the people that are there, I'll put you on speakerphone and I'll have you tell them to watch for us, and we'll give them a heads up next time. Okay.
You mean? Oh man, they wanted to talk to me.
Yeah, well, we have a bunch of people in the chat.
I'll do it then. Look. I am so embarrassed. I took a risk and trying to get a lot done after getting back. And
Okay.
I have no excuse. So I'll be there in it'll be about 15 minutes or 10.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just at least say hi to the folks here, and then we'll make plans to do another long one. Cool.
Yes, sorry. Please forgive. I owe you dinner.
No worries, man. I'll see you when you get on. I look forward to
All
it.
right, bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye.
All right, guys. See, this is what you do during the pandemic. You just got to learn to pivot. If you want to hang out with me, let's do this. And if not, man, I totally understand. You can just come back whenever. It doesn't matter to me. I just can't stand listening to my voice this long. All right. Elena wants to know about the best show I've ever played. You want to see something awesome? Check this out. July 3rd, just before the pandemic, Flock of Seagulls played a show in Quebec City with Corey Hart and Corey Hart and Level 42. Biggest show of my life, played in front of 90,000 people. I'm going to show you a little video here. It was a rush. And although I don't know that that was the best show I'd ever had, it was the biggest show and it was remarkable. Goosebump moments. I try to get goosebumps as often as I can. And it's more about experiences with people backstage or maybe making contact with somebody, visually while we're playing. But that one, the scene was phenomenal, right? So you're inside this fortress where the French had this massive, it looks like a castle on the top of the mountain. And so we performed inside this area, and I'm going to play you just a little, the end of the show, because it's pretty cool. All right, you can hear the crowd louder than us. Yeah. So here's the thing in Canada, right? Corey Hart's from Montreal, and it was nuts. It was like seeing the Beatles. Every woman had Corey's name written across their head, or they knew every lyric to every other song besides Sunglasses at Night and Never Surrender. I didn't realize how huge he was, but that was really wicked. We had, even like 2 weeks ago, the shows at the Greek. Playing the Greek Theater in LA was a bucket list item for me a couple of years ago. And it was a really special one to come back because I will say, the pandemic was really hard on my mental health, man. My friends know that I live to be on stage. And when we had to be stuck at home for, 18 months, the stuff that I did that fulfilled me was stripped away, which is why I started the podcast. I was here just to hang out with people that I normally tour with and get to share these experiences with people. But getting back on stage and getting to see all these bandmates, there were so many of these bands that have become family to me. And so it's like this massive family reunion that I live for. And the mental health suffering, every musician I know, I had on the show, we talked about how you went through this identity crisis because, you sort of identify everything that you do is what you're known for. You kind of become who you were on stage. At least it represented what your worth was. And when your worth disappeared, of course, that's where it takes a hit. So I've had some episodes where we talked about that on the show. Some musicians that have talked about dealing with mental health crises because of that. I may as well put this out here too. If you have, and this has been a struggle for you, I'm going to put this link in this phone number here, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. That crisis line is really helpful to a lot of people because during the pandemic, whether you were with someone you love or not, it felt real lonely, right? And it's tough to talk to people that you love about things like depression and anxiety. They might not get it, right? If people haven't experienced anxiety or depression, they don't understand. And that phone number right there, the crisis line, 1-877-726-4727, it's there for people like you as a nonprofit organization to be able to talk you through some of those crises so that it can stabilize and get you back on the right track. It's not a permanent fix, but it's a great place to start. So I think it's important if you're struggling with that, call that phone number, jot it down, look up the SAMHSA online, and take note of it. It's really important to talk about this stuff. So anyway, during that time, it was tough. It was great to get back on the road, and it meant everything to me to be able to get to perform and to be around all those bands that I really value as family and friends. I've been working on this project as well with Mike Skill from the Romantics, and Mike is this incredible dude that I love. He's got a lot of great music coming out. We put out songs that he had recorded 10 years ago or more, and then some newer stuff too. And he's a really gifted songwriter. He's got kind of a punk rock style, but real hooky, sort of rock and pop choruses. He's a true Detroit guy. And so check out Mike Skill if you can too. He's one of those guys that getting to play with him again has been really good for my psyche. I'm seeing Claudia's messages here. Hope to see you in the other Seagulls in England in March next year. Alma is looking forward to Pondo. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But I don't want to get Claudia. I don't want to get Alma in trouble. Yeah, well, I appreciate you listening to this, Elena. I don't normally, banter this long, but if Curtis is at least on here in a bit to talk to you guys, I think it'd be cool. He's got so many stories, though, so we're going to have to schedule another follow-up that we can do a longer show. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Elena wants to know what my Connecticut date is. All right, let me tell you. I will go to my own website because I'm not sure. All right, so get out your calendar. Write these notes down, everyone. Round Lake Beach, Illinois is next Saturday. So that's just north of Chicago. The 8th is Ashland, Kentucky at the Paramount Arts Center. October 10th is Norwalk, Connecticut at the Wall Street Theater. So there you go, Lena. Come out and hang out with us in Norwalk. The next day we're in Boston. And then the 12th in Philadelphia. And the 15th in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I'm not exactly sure whether that is. Hopefully it's close to Minneapolis so that tons of travel snafus. And then we're right back in Pennsylvania again. October 20th at Jurgles in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The 21st, Columbus, Ohio. The 22nd in Cincinnati, Ohio at Ludlow. The 23rd in Teaneck, New Jersey. And then, like I said, I will be hanging in Cancun the 24th through the 29th at 80s in the Sand Rocks. And then right back to Costa Mesa, California on the 30th. El Paso, Texas on the 4th of November 7th in Palm Springs. And then we're back out with Lost 80s Live. So these are really cool. On the 19th and the 20th, we're playing in Grand Prairie, which is essentially Dallas, Texas. And then the 20th in Houston, Texas at the Arena Theater. Check out these bands that we're playing with. I think you'll dig this. Let me load these up here. Tons of great bands. Flock of Seagulls, Romantics, Naked Eyes, The Vapors, Farrington and Man, the original members of When in Rome. I don't know if that's actually happening, but Musical Youth. Remember Past the Duchy? You guys know that song. Animotion, my homies, Glass Tiger, which unbelievable great band, man. They really are. They're another Toronto band, Canadian band. Alan Frew, he's wicked. Annabella from Bow Wow Wow will be there. TransX and Christopher Anton. So go to kevinrankin.com/calendar. You can get all those dates and check it out. Look who's here. I've got Curtis Salgado. What's happening, buddy?
My apologies. I thought I could go near the airport where there's a mall there, and I needed to visit it for various reasons. And the traffic is incredibly bad.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
sorry, I'm on my phone right now.
I appreciate that, man. It looks good. Oh, look at how handsome and debonair you look.
Thank you very much. Do you really think so?
Really? I thought you were just going to tell me that you're more than just a pretty face.
I'm more than just a pretty face. I was leading up to that.
Okay.
I'm more than I have brains as well,
They have brains.
I'm smart. I'm smart too.
Brains and talent. It's not just your looks.
It's not just my beauty that gets me.
Was it an IKEA run today? I have to ask.
It was close.
Okay. Yeah. There's just no getting out of there, man.
I can't. No. I had something to return.
Okay.
So I figured I would make it, and I'm only maybe 10 minutes away from the airport where I'm at.
Oh, cool.
I'm on I'm nearby, and the traffic was. It was just like, oh my God, I'm blowing it. And this is very unprofessional of me, and I'm sorry. We talked this morning. I'm all good to go. I took a risk, and I failed.
Well, I totally appreciate you making this happen. We are definitely going to have to do a longer one because you've got more
Time
stories.
is up.
Well, no, I mean, you've got stories that it could take 4 hours, and when you and I first talked for a couple of hours a few weeks ago, I realized that you do a lot of storytelling just through your music on stage. You've got a really good sort of, I don't want to say it's banter because it's very authentic, but
it's banter.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not doing it to fill in time. I have a tendency to stream of conscious to start going. Sometimes it really works, and sometimes, but I catch myself like, what the hell am I talking about? Let's get on with the music.
That's just what I did for the last 40 minutes, man.
Yeah.
But I did hear from some people. There were folks in the chat that talked about the places that they'd seen you, and this is really cool. I had a classmate that saw you at the Emerson in Bozeman, Montana, which is where I grew up, and so when you did those kinds of gigs, when you're out on the road, there was a little bit of a circuit for amazing Northwest artists that would come through where it wasn't like a bar circuit. This is actually like kind of a cultural hub. Bozeman, Missoula would take in bands like you. Jerry Joseph is another one that I really respected a lot that I would see.
I love Jerry Joseph. Very good songwriter.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And like you, dude knows how to overcome adversity,
Yeah.
I mean, I touched on a couple of like medical woes that you had gone through, and I knew about some of this stuff, but realizing, man, you beat cancer 3 times. Is that
4
right?
times.
4 times. All right.
But who's counting?
Yeah, I don't mean to short you, man. I think your punch card is it's only halfway full, so you're good to go there. But and then you had heart surgery, right? So
there's a lot of things I'd like to run you by in this. I'm trying to get the phone right for. There we go. Yeah, just move my hand. That helps.
There we go. I can probably do this too. How's that?
Fine.
Yeah. Look at that. All right. Yeah. What a man! Look at that just handsome cat.
Yeah, I used to. Yeah. It's like I'm doing all right.
Do you want to put the shades on? That's your look, right? The shades.
That's my look. Yeah, shades. Because I'm blind and I wear them so I can read the set list.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so I can close my eyes. It makes me sing in pitch better.
So
that's why I wear shades. They do look cool. I mean, I'm a blues guy, right?
Yeah. For sure.
I'm a soul singer.
Do you actually dip out and does it help you focus on your pitch when you got the shades on?
It does. Closing your eyes does. For me, it's like I'm focusing in on what I'm fitting into. I'm in the mix to me. It's just like, and of course I follow the bass.
Yeah.
And the pocket and the bass, and that keeps me in pitch. You can kind of hear. The rest is cool, but all I need is the bass, and I can hear where I'm at from the changes.
I love that.
But let's talk about Bozeman, if it's okay.
Please.
You were going, there's a circuit, but what you do is you hook up with an agency, and the agency is supposed to book you across the nation, right?
Right.
And so I've been playing in Missoula, Montana at the Top Hat. Bozeman, Montana. I met Norton Buffalo there. I remember back in the 70s when they were filming Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
And Bozeman, I think there's a university there. Is that right? Billings.
Montana State University, Bozeman Bobcats. There, that's me.
Done some great concerts there with Buddy Guy. Did a small tour with him, and but we used to play Missoula, Montana at the Top Hat in the 70s.
Yeah.
When I was with Robert Cray. Now you get an agency and it opens up the gates, and they're supposed to book you all the way across the nation and stuff. So basically about a circuit, you kind of get on a circuit, but so is everybody else. And you graduate from bars and small theaters to larger theaters and to festivals. And hopefully, what they call sheds in the business, and you're aware of that.
Yes.
You want to
Those-
say what a shed is to the
Those
listeners?
those are the sheds are the massive big outdoor amphitheaters. They start at 5,000, they go up. Most time, there's at least a part of it that's covered up. There's some open air, there are seats to the back, and then possibly grass. But those are the big sheds.
That's it. Those are the big kind of amphitheater. They have the screens. So I have a good story to tell you if you have the time.
I'm here, man.
Yeah. So I put out my first record, and it was called Curtis Salgado and the Stilettos.
Right.
And now I'm embarrassed about that, but that's another thing. But anyhow, we put out a record, and we were doing and picked up an agency that was supporting us, and they booked us in Ketchum, Idaho.
Oh yeah, Sun
And,
Valley.
Yeah, and Ketchum, Idaho is the ski resort area where the Hemingways live, and Tom Hanks and family, and Bruce Willis, and all sorts of movie stars and movie people and sports figures and stuff. Well, we're playing a set, and my bass player turns around and goes, "I think Steve Miller's in the audience." And I thought to myself, who cares? I'm not really into Steve Miller.
Okay.
This gets better. So I'm thinking to myself, sorry, folks. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not really into, so who cares, Anyhow, we take a break. It's 2 75-minute shows. We take a break, and Steve Miller comes backstage. And I literally come up to him and I go, "God, it's, nice to meet you. But, I got to tell you, I'm not really into your music because basically, and you got to understand, I'm thinking what I'm saying, and I'm going, I'm not really into your music because basically, it's like people taking watered down blues licks and turning them into pop songs.
Okay.
Like for instance, Big O Jet Airliner is bump bump da 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 do do do, which is Crossroads.
Yeah, right.
And that's the riff from Crossroads, watered down. I mean, Robert Johnson does it a little greasier than that, and so I'm going like, it's just these watered down blues licks turned into pop. And as my toys are falling out of my mouth, I realized, well, isn't that what I'm doing? Aren't I doing the same thing, And I look at him and I go, isn't that what I'm doing? And he kind of laughs, and we hit it off immediately. I right there ranked him out, and at the same time apologized as I was ranking him out. I'm going, why am I saying this? What the hell? If I think about it, I literally do the same thing. We're all taking watered down blues licks and turn them into pop songs. So we hit it off, and we talked, and we were late for the second set. And then him and I talked on the phone and went back to my room at this hotel, and we talked on the phone until 4 a.m. No job. And then he goes, you know what? Why don't you bring the band over, and I'll have my wife. Her name is Kim. I'll have Kim cook breakfast, and you can come over. So the band goes over there. And he lives outside of Ketchum on this long straight road, and you pull into this house, big ranch style house. Directly behind it is a majestic mountain with a stream. And we're looking at this, and in the front of probably about 10 acres of his front yard is a large studio. You don't know it's a studio yet, but it's this beautiful sort of oak wood building made, oh my God. And so this is my first view of rock and roll money,
Yeah.
This is my first view of rock and roll money. This house is beautiful. Circular driveway, the whole thing. It goes on to the left and to the right. You walk in, and Kim cooked us this amazing breakfast, blueberry pancakes. And the kitchen was, and then he took us out, and we go into this room, and he's got a file cabinet. And his file cabinet, he's got contracts from his gig when he was 12 years old in Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth.
12.
And he's got, and here's my first contract. And he's just so smart and so articulate, and he knows show business. This
Yeah.
is one of the first guys ever who got his own leasing on his records, and one of the first guys to say, I'm not giving up my song rights.
Man.
You know, Steve Miller, you know, is like, you want my stuff? I get it. I want my publishing. I want this. He's one of the very first, way back in the 60s, who pulled that together.
You know,
my jaw has dropped. I'm going, wow, man. So here's the real story. So here's the story. So I go home, and the band is floating all the way from Ketchikan, Idaho, back to Portland, Oregon. We're like, well, there's a chance. You write a hit song, you might get this. This is what rock and roll money is. And he's got maybe 10 top 10 records, right?
Right.
Fly Like an Eagle, Jet Airliner, you know, Abracadabra, Take the Money and Run, on and on and on.
Yeah.
So have I lost any listeners yet? Do you know? No. So this is what happened. May rolls around. That was November. And the month of May rolls around, April, May. And I thought, I'm going to call up Steve Miller. I'm going to call him up and see. Maybe he'll hang up and go, who cares? You know.
But I give pancakes. Him a call.
Yeah. So I give him a call. And he answers the phone. I said, Stevie Guitar Miller. And he goes, Curtis, God, man, is it good to talk? What's up? You know, we start talking. And we talked for 2 hours. And here's what we talked about. We talked about all sorts of things, the music business and this and that. And he says, yeah, I'm going out on the road with Peter Frampton. And I went, oh, wow. You know, and he goes, yeah, I remember when Peter Frampton was a kid and he used to open up for us in the UK. And this time he's opening us and we're going on a tour, a shed tour.
There you go.
Across the nation. I go, what's a shed tour? And he tells me, you know, so these are the major rooms. Everybody out there dreams of being a rock star or dreams of doing this. You want a shed tour in the summertime. Yeah. That's the bar you're reaching for.
That's the Everest.
So I go, oh, wow. And he goes, yeah, I used to have, Peter Frampton used to open up for me back in the UK and stuff. And then he had that hit called, you know, the one where he plays through a talk box called, do you feel like I feel and stuff. Huge hit. Yeah. And Peter all of a sudden became the hit of the tour. And because he had the hit record, and Stevie was over there, but he didn't have a hit record out yet. It hadn't been released. And so Frampton took over. It was something like that. Okay. So Frampton is now the headliner, not Steve. And he goes, and you know what? I mean, I gave Peter Frampton all the PA system. If you're a headliner, you control. And if you're the opening act, you're pretty much toast.
Yeah.
You don't get the major PA system. You don't get the heavy lights. You don't get, you know, and you only get 30 minutes to do your thing.
Right.
And you better put the best of your set in the last 30 minutes. The last 3 songs, wham, 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 because that's when people are finally coming back from buying their Zuzus and wham, whams and T-shirts, and they sit down. And so that's the best time. That's when the audience is going to be. And he's telling me all this. And he goes, and he just made it difficult for us, man. He was just like, it was so incredible. So this is what I did. He goes, I just wasn't having a good time. And he wasn't giving us but 1 or 2 monitors and this and that. And he's like, Steve Miller, you know. And he goes, so we went out and we bought laser lights just when they came out in the business. Those thin beam lights that you were seeing back in the 70s and early 80s. He goes, we went out and they just came out with them. They kind of just invented them. So I'm going, I wonder where this is going. It's going. So we bought about 14 of those things and we're doing a concert at Wembley Stadium in big. And we placed the lights strategically around the stadium. And then we stalled. I go, stall. He goes, yeah, you know, you're supposed to be on time and be out there. The show starts at 7, but the sunlight's still going. So we knew that those lights weren't going to show up. So we stalled for like 20 minutes, lying to the promoters and the promotionists and the stage managers going like, We can't find this guy. We can't, so-and-so's, they just made up excuses and they got angry. It's like, you're supposed to be on stage, but they knew that if they stalled, by the time the end of the set would come up, it would be dark time.
Yeah. And
so sure enough, they still got a few more songs to do, and the sun sinks and it's nighttime, and they're way late, and they play Fly Like an Eagle, and they turn on the beams, and they go right over the heads of the audience. And it's like 14, it says green and red, and the audience just went like that and everything. And they freaked out, and they played, Fly Like an Eagle and a whole thing. And then they were fired.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I was waiting for that one, because you and I both know, man, you like those shows run like so, like to the T, with those, I mean, the headline artists that you hear about that would show up late, they can do that because they're the headliner. If an opening act goes on late, their set's over, man. And like, but I think Steve turned out all right. He did an okay, but
So he knew he was going to be in trouble, and he got in trouble, and they were fired. And as he's telling me this, I'm like learning like this, like what? Right. Sheds and this, and you did this. And by the way, make sure the best songs are at the end and all this kind of stuff. But I've never been in that situation before at this point. And I have my first solo record out, and he goes, you know what? And I know I can cuss. Can I cuss on the air here?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so he goes, fuck Peter Frampton, I'm taking you on the road.
Oh.
I go, what? He goes, yeah, I'm taking you. How would you like to come out and tour with me? I'm going like, what? He goes, yeah. You know what? I don't want to take Peter Frampton. I want to. Now, they've already set it up. So every promoter and every place that has these sheds across the nation doesn't know who Curtis Salgado is at all. And he's going, I'm taking you. I go, don't be teasing me now. I said, don't be telling. No, let's set it up. Who's your manager? Who's your agent? Don't have one. Get one. Da-da-da-da-da. Boom, boom, boom. Long story short, but this is beautiful. He took me on a shed tour for the entire summer. He let Peter Frampton go, and they're still friends today. And Peter Frampton's still doing shows with him and stuff.
And a sweetheart of a guy, too, by the way.
Steve, yes, he is. And Steve took me under his wing, said goodbye for that summer of, I don't know Peter Frampton. I hear he's a sweetheart. He could sure play the guitar. That's for sure. So anyhow, it's just like, what? He goes, yeah. And he took me out, a total unknown act, on tour with him. And we played every shed across the nation.
Wow.
Played Red Rocks, Jones Theater, this and this and this, and that's Steve Miller for you, man. He's one of my he's somebody that I dearly love. I'll never forget it. We're still friends, and I ended up doing 3 full tours with him over the years.
Man, what was that first year? Do you remember the year?
It's like 91 or 2.
Okay. I talk about this to a lot of musicians on the show about network and the hang, right? Because you and I both know that there are a million amazing players out there, right? Like there are guys that can play like around me in circles on drums. There are great guitarists, and people would come up to me, say, dude, how'd you get this gig? Right. And I'm like, well, it's not and actually one of my friends actually said, it's not like you're an amazing drummer or anything. And I said, well, I tell you what, it's because I don't ask questions like that, and I'm an easy hang, right?
Right.
The hang is so key. And the fact that even if you started to stumble with this, sort of this line towards, Steve Miller saying, hey, I'm not really into your stuff. And then you caught yourself, and there was a moment of humility where you realized, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing too. I mean, that's what everybody's been doing since that stuff originated. Right. And,
right.
And the fact that you were real with him, because you and I both know that guys in the industry tend to get just the superficial from most people that you talk to. There's not a whole lot of conversation past the surface, because most of the time you're showing up at the venues, you're doing this, you're doing that, and you got sound checks and you got obligations. And so there's a little bit more than, there's barely more than, hey, what's the weather like? And the fact that you were approachable enough with Steve And then it does say a lot about his character, that he brought the whole band back. He invited you in to trust you with, as a family thing. Um, that's where relationships are built, long term, man. And I have a great friend who's been playing bass with Steve's other band, his blues thing for a while, Tad Wadhams and Bruce Willis, right? So Tad had said amazing things about both of those guys too, and it sounds like those are few and far between. But you got to hang on to those relationships when you get them. I told you this before when you and I first talked a while back, that Huey Lewis was saying similar kind of things about you. He had this tremendous reverence about you. When I ran into him on the 80s cruise, and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm originally from Montana." And he said, "Oh, yeah, man." And I said, "Well, yeah, you've got a place up there near Kalispell in Whitefish." And he said, "Yeah, turns out that a friend of mine was this fishing guide of all things, man, which is crazy." But I said, "Yeah, I've been in Portland like 26, well, at that point, like 22 years. And he said, "Man, Portland, Oregon." He said, "Curtis Salgado, Paul DeLay, those guys." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Like how? Where's it?" Because I'm thinking Huey Lewis, heart of rock and roll, not really equating Curtis Salgado, Blues Brothers, like Curtis Salgado, Robert Cray. And he said, "Man, that's the reason I play harmonica." He said, "That
Yes,
dude
he does."
But he says that about you. He said, "That's the reason I play harmonica is because of Curtis Salgado." He said,
"That's interesting." Yeah, that makes me. Robert Cray, we parted ways and remained friends and stuff, and I champion him a lot. But he got to tour with Huey Lewis.
Okay.
And I met Huey Lewis a couple of times. One of the best acts I've ever seen, and probably one of the best sounding. Sitting in not an auditorium, but the Coliseum, and I swear to God, it sounded like Push Play or Drop the Needle. It sounded like a record. The sound was perfect. It wasn't like you can't make out the muddle of the bass. And whatever he had was the top team. Yeah, the guest artists were the horn section from Tower of Power. Of course. And they would do. I know the Hayeses, Kevin Hayes and Chris Hayes and Bonnie Hayes. Okay. And Chris Hayes is one of the founders of Huey Lewis besides Huey.
Okay.
And he's the guitar player who wrote a lot of those,
Right.
That album, Four, it's one of the biggest selling.
Yeah.
Had 4 #1 hits on it. That made them a fortune. I love Huey Lewis. And they did stuff, man. I remember they'd play, and it was just a machine, greased machine that's just wham, wham. And at one point, he'd play a harmonica solo. Just before he'd whip out his harmonica, and the guitar player, Chris, would take a round microphone, and a static, they call him, and throw it like a baseball. And he would, and he'd catch it and then play, and they did it right in time. I was like, whoa, you don't see that too often.
That's true.
Like, here, whoosh, he catch, and he'd catch it, and then boom, he'd be right there for the solo.
That's
It's one of the best acts, not just because of that. It was just And here's something we were at a party afterwards, and lots of shenanigans are going on.
Imagine
but
that.
Huey, Richard Cousins was playing bass with Robert Cray, and Huey said, you got to work on throwing a shape. And what's throwing a shape? How do you look? You got to have some sort of character. You can't just. Whenever I look at YouTube now and I look, and of course it happens to be, because of just changing music and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me about that. It's changing music and, grunge and Nirvana and all this kind of stuff, which I love. I'm not going to, I could go on about them, but, they said throw a shape and to find your character. And when I saw them another night, it was just like each one of them was you can't be something like the audience.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you players out there, don't go on stage in shorts and shoes and black socks and a t-shirt.
Right.
Look like something. Take command of the stage, man. I wear GQ just straight ahead, nice brand new jeans, nice shoes, nice sport jacket, nothing, not dressing up like Liberace or Prince, which is beautiful, but that's the idea, man.
Yeah.
You got to look like something. And we learned that from Huey Lewis. You got to throw a shape. What do you mean? You got to look like something other than the audience.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's, I don't really know him, but I have so much. I've met him a couple of times and I admire him so much,
As he does you.
Yes.
It's interesting. Every time I talk to you, you tend to, throw reverence towards somebody else too, man. It's really nice that, maybe that comes with wisdom but a lot of guys in the business, it's all about me. And
Right.
when I first talked to you, you'd mentioned this story. And by the way, guys, if you in there in the chat, you've got some really awesome questions about his records. But I just wanted to point out something. The first time I talked to you, you talked about receiving awards and recognizing the real traditional, the formative points that the influence came from. Do you remember talking about that? You were saying, I'm up there, on this, getting these awards, but these are the guys, right? So you tell me that story again, because I thought I had so much respect for you honoring those guys rather than just receiving all the credit yourself.
One of the things I learned is just for my own self, and probably or definitely coming with sobriety. I'm in sobriety. I have like 32 years, 33 or something.
That's nice.
But it just, I knew I was going to kill myself, and I'd already done that a couple of times. And it's just like, if I continue, this sounds really, but I like me too much. I got things to do. I want to reinvent myself. I got to reinvent myself. And so I reinvented myself. I owe everybody an apology. I owe this, but you start to get like, you know what? I am who I am. And that guy sings better than I do. And instead of going like, it's just like, got to hand it to him. What can I learn from this? What can I can't do that. I can't sing like Stevie Wonder. I sure wish I could. And then there's people that probably out-sing Stevie Wonder or, Donny Hathaway or Sam Cooke.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest soul singers of all time is a guy named O.V. Wright. And another guy who's in the same case as him. These are Memphis soul. These are soul singers, hard Southern soul. And that's what I'm into. And it's like this guy named Otis Clay. Now, Otis Clay has gone on tour with Sam Cooke. He's played the Apollo Theater. He's from the Black community. He's from somewhere in Arkansas, up in Memphis, Tennessee, and he's on the same label as Al Green.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're talking about deep Black stuff here. And I'm from Eugene, Oregon. But that doesn't mean it can't rub off on you, but you got to study it and you got to know and you got to learn. And Otis Clay was one of those people who I could ask questions to. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? How is it? Who do you, and I got into gospel music and everybody in the Black community, the singers you admire so much, from Whitney Houston to Sam Cooke to Wilson Pickett to Dada, are all gospel singers turned secular singers.
Yeah.
Most of them. That's where the rules are broken, especially in the Black community. Yeah. They're coming from a whole other thing. So that said, I won an award in Memphis for Best Soul Singer. And sitting right over there is my buddy, Otis Clay.
Oh, man.
I can't carry his wallet. Are you kidding me? This is who I listened to when I was 19, 20, 22 years old, Stop pussyfooting around, or, Precious. He did Precious. He did, they say I'm afflicted. They say I'm afflicted. It's the hard soul stuff. And this guy is like, get on YouTube and look up When the Gates Swing Open by Otis Clay.
Okay.
And you'll see
the Goosebumps song. Yeah.
So anyhow, that's why it's like, I'm winning an award. There's something wrong here. And I'm just not afraid to say it. Yeah. Now, you can't sit there and go, So, I'm not going to give the award back because that would be disrespectful,
Right.
But can I point out he's who I stole it from? It's him.
Yeah.
That's where I learned. I never played the Apollo Theater. I didn't tour or open up for Sam Cooke. I wasn't standing on stage with O.V. Wright,
Yeah.
Johnny Taylor. Johnny Taylor? He's doing shows with Johnny Taylor and Solomon Burke. Those are people I want to be like. But
Yeah.
you got to be yourself. But you just like, and I'm winning this. It's a popularity contest.
Of course.
Obviously, more people know who I am than they do Otis Clay. Because people in the white community are out there on the blues cruises listening to, so it's kind of, everybody should know who Otis Clay is. Everybody should know who Sam Cooke is. Everybody should know who O.V. Wright is. You want to hear the real stuff,
I love that you could open eyes to people like that. That's really what it sounded like, where the Belushi thing happened, right? When he saw you playing in Eugene, from what I read, they were doing the Animal House shoot, right? And he came in and saw you playing, and he said, "Man, teach me everything you know about the blues." And then you showed him, like, this is authenticity, man. This is where this came from. And that lit a fire under him, right? So you've got the ability to sort of use your soapbox to educate people, and provide a little bit more insight, right, into, the real cats that started that sound.
That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I want people to know where credit's due, and I'll help you with the blues story. And you pretty much gave a great, Scott, I'm so sorry, you gave a great Reader's Digest version of it. Was playing a show in Eugene, Oregon at the Eugene Hotel. It was a double show. It was the Robert Cray Band and then a band that I was in called the Nighthawks.
Oh, yeah.
And this consisted of people still around, like Dave, D.K. Stewart was the piano player, and David Olson was no longer alive. He was the drummer. Richard Cousins was in a band with Robert. Richard and I lived together.
Okay.
We lived together. So we didn't have a TV. We had our stereo. And he had his collection and I had mine. And combined, we had a very tasty collection of R&B and blues and soul and funk and gospel.
Nice.
And so, we would do gigs together, the Nighthawks and the Robert Cray Band. Okay. So we thought, on Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, weekend are the big money dates. The weeknights, you got to pick up a side gig. So we picked up a side gig at the Eugene Hotel. And it was a Monday night, Blue Mondays, Eugene Hotel. And we called ourselves the Crayhawks.
Oh, nice.
It would be David Olson, me from the Nighthawks, Richard Cousins, and Robert Cray from the Cray Band. And then we'd switch off keyboard players from each band. It might be D.K. Stewart on a night, or it would be Dover Weinberg from, he was playing with him. This is 1977 when this happened. So, long story, a little longer. So we also think of doing a gig in the ballroom of the Eugene Hotel. So we got a Monday night gig there in the lounge, and let's do a weekend date and call it Double Trouble, Triple Threat, and we'll be both the Nighthawks and Robert Cray full band on a Friday, Saturday. And the management of the hotel went for it and said, okay. So we got this lined up. We put up posters. Meanwhile, over to the left, they're going to make a movie in Eugene, and they found it. They've been trying, from what I understand, all over the United States. But the campus of the University of Oregon said, yeah, come on in. And we happen to know of a fraternity house that's going to be torn down, and you could do the movie there. Now, I'm talking like I know what I'm saying from the get. I didn't know that.
Sure.
Took me years to find that out. I don't know who John Belushi is. Richard doesn't know. We don't know because we don't own a television.
Right.
And I work every Saturday nights. I don't know what Saturday Night Live is. I don't know who this guy is.
Oh my God.
So this is what happens. A cocaine dealer comes up And I know who he is. We all know who he is. Eugene isn't that big.
Right.
And his name is Richard, and we call him Little Dick because he's about 5 feet tall.
Okay. Little Dick the Coke dealer. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. Little Dick the Coke dealer. So he starts yanking. We're playing. Now, Robert, I know that Robert isn't there. And Robert opened up for me on Friday night. And then I play. On this night, I'm opening up. And Robert is somewhere making a part in the movie. Now, I was going to tell you that part, but so I'll go back a little bit. Richard came up to me one day and said, this is about 2 weeks before this gig, and goes, I guess Robert's got a part in a movie. I said, really? There's making? He goes, yeah, I guess he's going to. And then that was that. It was like, oh, I'll be darned. We moved on. Now here we are, Eugene Hotel. And Little Dick comes up and yanks on my pant leg.
Wait a minute. Little Dick's grabbing. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Little Dick comes up,
grabs your pants
on my pant leg. Yank, yank, yank. Hey, he goes, hey, Bellucci wants to meet you. I thought he sneezed. I mean, I didn't know. I go, what? He goes, Bellucci wants to meet you. What? And I'm singing. Not only that, I'm in the middle of a song. People go like, hey, stop what you're doing. Come here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, don't do that, people. If you see someone singing, wait till the song's over. Anyhow, so this guy's
got a lot of money in hand.
Yeah, so I think what happened is that he overheard John Bellucci say, I'd like to meet that guy. And since he's John Bellucci and everybody in the room knows who he is, but me and the band members we don't know who he is. This is a big ballroom and it's full of people. Yeah. And Little Dick comes up, yanks on my pant leg and says, Bellucci wants to meet you. And I lean in and go, what? And he goes, Bellucci wants, what are you, and I go back to singing, and then in between, and finally I tell him to frig off, get out of my face. I jump off the stage at the end of the set. I'm walking to some girlfriends. It's a gaggle of girls over there, and I can name them for you. Yeah. So I go over there and he grabs me. He spins me around and points his arm out and goes, Bellucci, like this, Bellucci. And I look over and there's this guy, and he's about 5'2". He's very stocky, and he comes up and shakes my hand. We're standing right in front of the stage, and he goes, hello. Yeah, I like your music. I like your music. I have a friend, he plays harmonica. Yeah, you kind of look like him. I used to have, you kind of look like him. He plays harmonica too. His name is Dan Aykroyd. And I just look at him like, the first thing I'm going to tell you guys that I thought was like, who gives a shit? Every hippie in Eugene plays harmonica. And, yeah. I remember turning my head over and I'm looking at the set. We're standing right by the stage. I go, oh, well, thank you very much. He goes, yeah. I'm with the movie that's in town. And I go, really? Robert's in that movie? The first word I said to him was, really? Robert's in that movie? And he didn't blink. He just goes, yeah, I saw Robert today. He taught us how to dance. Oh, wow. And they were doing this, I won't go off into that, but he goes, hey, he taught us how to dance. Oh, so we have this little talk. So now I kind of figure he's an actor of some sort. And I'm telling you, folks, that's why we hit it off. Because he knew then I didn't know or give a shit who he was. Yeah. I go, yeah, well, okay, whatever. He goes, yeah, I'm in this movie that they're making in town. Oh, really? And I have to fly from New York to Portland and then drive down here to Eugene. And then tomorrow, Sunday morning, I have to do it all backwards, go back to Portland and fly to New York. But I'm really excited about it. I play in this kind of variety show. He never said Saturday Night Live.
Really?
Ever.
Oh, my God.
He just said,
wow.
I'm playing in this show. We do this thing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, okay. And you got to remember, I'm going to keep reminding this. I don't know who he is, but I know that he's an actor. And
you didn't know Aykroyd either?
No, and he's not around either. Aykroyd, I met about a year after this.
Okay.
So Aykroyd's not in the movie, and he was, this is totally John Bellucci's thing.
Yeah.
So he's there to play the part of Blotto or whatever his name is, an animal. I'm sorry, but anyhow, I go, oh, okay. So, yeah, he goes, yeah, I got to fly in and then this. But I'm really excited because I do this variety show, whatever, and we're going to have Ray Charles. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, we're doing a show with Ray Charles, man. I'm really excited about it. And then I go, wait a minute, you're with Ray Charles? And he started walking away. And I go, wait a minute, come here.
Yeah.
You're doing a show with Ray Charles? He knew he had me. He goes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I just went off on him. I go, Ray Charles, you got to ask him about Guitar Slim. He goes, what? Who's Guitar Slim? You don't know who Guitar Slim is? Oh my God, 1953, the things I used to do, Atlantic on Specialty Records. It's like one of the biggest hits. I mean, God, he plays piano on the things that he actually ran the session. Ray Charles is the one who arranged the horns and ran the session for Guitar Slim's The Things I Used to Do. By the way, folks, that's a song that's covered by Albert Collins and Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Right.
So it's one of the classic blues songs of all time.
Great.
And he's just looking at me dumbfounded. I said, God, you got to ask him this and that. Did you know? And then I said, did you know he plays alto saxophone? And he goes, Ray Charles plays saxophone? I go, yeah, man. Atlantic Records, 1958, live at Newport Jazz. Ray Charles plays on a song called Hot Rod. Plays the shit out of the alto saxophone, man. He's a great, and he goes, let's go smoke a joint.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So we went upstairs, and the rest, I could go on. And about 4 days later, he calls me up and says, bring your records over. Because when we went upstairs and we visited for about another half an hour, and I didn't know, and this is to go on what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that I didn't care who he was. I don't care who anybody is.
Right.
If you're interested in this music, I am glomming onto you.
Yeah.
You want to know about it? Let me tell you, because this stuff just thrills me. I just love history.
Man.
And now at 68 years old, I've played with a lot of these people and, got to stand on stage with Robert Cray for 8 years and But that's how Bellucci and I met. And his wife, Judy Jacqueline, I'd go over and I brought a pile of records and Sonny Boy Williamson, King Floyd, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, on and on and on. Magic Sam, Jimmy Dawkins, Judy Wells and Buddy Guy doing Hootie Money, on and on. I just brought him everything. Joe Turner. I brought him my parents' records.
That's well, cool of your parents to have that be your introduction to music too, right? I mean, as a young fledgling musician, man, to have that exposure, because we become the products of what our parents put us in front of, right? So they could have just had Dion and Beach Boys, and your life would have been completely different, man.
Yeah, my mother and father were hip. Yeah. And I was who else I heard the same story from is Huey Lewis.
Really?
If you were to ask him, he'd say, yeah, he grew up in a family that was really into jazz music. And my folks were jazz enthusiasts. Yeah. So I was listening to Albert Ammons, Bix Beiderbecke, Bunk Johnson, New Orleans guys like Henry Red Allen, Louis Armstrong, Fletcher Henderson, who was the arranger for Benny Goodman and all those swing bands in that era. Fletcher Henderson was the master arranger of that swing music. And so, I mean, I'm into, I want to know who these people are, who made the music, who makes it, and how that branches off. And so my parents, and then I have an older brother, sister. And, but I'm not the only one with this story,
Oh yeah,
of
course. But you know what the thing is, a lot of those other people wouldn't share the spotlight of the stories. You always sort of turn it back into people that you share it with, or people that have sort of inspired you, or you've taken the baton from. And there are people that are loving these stories and here in the chat. And you know what? They're gonna have to love it some more, because you and I have to do a part 2. Because
I would love to.
So much to do, but where I'm heading next. So I got an obligation tonight that I have to do my service work. So
yes, sir.
So here's what I want for you guys in the chat. There are a whole bunch of questions that you had for Curtis, man. There were comments you had about your favorite albums. You had some questions about some shows for him. So I want y'all to go to this link. Go to this link below, youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin. It's a long ass name, but if you find it, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, because you're going to be notified when the shows come up again. I will advertise it, but when tonight, Curtis and I are going to lock down a date within the next, hopefully, next 10 days if we can, right? Because we're at a fresh cliffhanger right there, man. And you've got gigs coming up. I already told everybody about your tour dates coming up. You've got stuff that leaves about the same time we do. So before you're off in your California dates, I want to connect with you. So
I would love to. Please, I'm a knucklehead. I apologize. There is no excuse. You're just going to have to take my apologies. Please forgive me. Hey. I mean, if you wanted to send me the questions, I'll start typing them out,
Oh, yeah. You know what? I want these people to come back, because there is nothing better than there is nothing better than Curtis Salgado one-on-one, man. I love it. It's not just the stories either, but when you and I talked before, there's vulnerability, there's honesty, there's humility. I know a lot of that came from recovery, and it's an important thing. We talked before you got on about the importance of decency, and mental health is a really, really big thing, man. So I pointed out to people that during the pandemic, it was a struggle for a lot of people, and I provided a number for that crisis line. So guys, if you're just now getting here, this will be archived at accesskevin.com in about 5 minutes. I'll have it up there. You can go back through, get those phone numbers. You got to hear Curtis's stories from the beginning too, man, because there's good stuff. And then I will update on that page as well the follow-up for part 2 of Curtis Salgado. My friend, I really appreciate you racing back, and this is really fun, man. The next time you come back, we're going to talk about.
I shouldn't have left.
No, you know what, man? I mean, it's fun because people got to test out my ability to just punt for a while. But man, like, we got to talk about the record. I just cannot get "Hail Almighty Caesar" out of my head. It's just stuck all the time. And so, guys, go to CurtisSalgado.com. Just grab everything you can between now and then. And by the time we get back for part 2, he'll have more stories for us. So, Curtis. Please give my best to Suzanne, and thank you for racing back, man. I'll send you a note here tonight, and we'll lock down the next part 2. Guys, Thank you guys again. I appreciate you being here. AccessKevin.com. I'll have it in 5 minutes. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Much love to all of you. Thank you for being